Good morning, Zimbabwe, and welcome to Zimbabwe Daily. My name is Yvonne Muchaka, and I do hope I find all of you well. Welcome to the PADA Platform Dialogue Series, where we are bringing you different topics and discussing various subjects so that we can build and create safe spaces for women and girls. My name is Yvonne Muchaka, and I'll be your host on the show today. In studio, we do have Shalom. Shalom, welcome.
Thank you, Yvonne.
Excellent. We are waiting for other ladies to join us, but in the meantime, we will continue and we will start this conversation off. As you know, that when we look at what's happening on the global scale, you'd realize that 9% of girls experience sexual violence in childhood. And of those who have had their sexual debut prior to age 18, nearly 17% of girls' first sexual intercourse was unwanted. And we're not just talking sex, we're also talking different things. We are talking safety of our girls and our women in public spaces, be it in transport, be it at the workplace, be it in the different areas that women and girls are found in schools, even in homes, in all those spaces where we find people. And I just want to allow my guests to introduce themselves and we go into the different topics. So I'll start with you, Shalom. Please go ahead and introduce yourself to the people of Zimbabwe.
Okay. Hello, Zimbabwe. My name is Shalom Chinoruma. I am standing in for Women's Space. I'll just briefly talk about what Women's Space is about. Women's Space is an organization that promotes the perspectives and work of women to be acknowledged in safe spaces, like what we're about to talk about, and also to promote effective participation of women, be it economically, socially, politically, and culturally. That's it for me.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Shalom. Over to you, Bridget.
Hello, Zimbabwe. My name is Bridgetti Mambondiani. I'm a law student at the University of Zimbabwe, and I'm a student activist. I'm the chair lady for Zinasu UZ chapter. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Bridget. Over to you, Margaret.
Hi, colleagues. Afternoon. Um, I'm happy to be a part of this platform. Thank you to PADA platform. I am from an organization called Economic Justice for Women Project, where we mainly focus on young women's inclusion in economic governance issues. So I'm excited to be here and to be exploring how we can ensure that women and girls are safe. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Margaret Mutsamvi, coming through dealing with the service delivery issues and how young girls and women can be safe. This conversation, as I've said, is brought to you by PADA Platform, and we want to allow women to participate in these issues so that we're able to come up with lasting solutions for our issues. I'll start with you, Margaret. I know you've spoken about service delivery. I want you to just give me a heads up in terms of how our service delivery systems are impacting on the quality of women and girls' lives, and how, if we are to improve in that area, we are creating a safe space for girls and women. Margaret.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. You can go ahead.
Great. Thank you very much. That's a critical question. To highlight the link, to make it clear, what's the link between social service provision and women and girls' safety? So I think maybe to start with, we just need to have a basic understanding of what we are talking about when we talk about service delivery. So it's so simple. These are things we interact with every day. We are talking about adequate provision of water. We are talking about roads, road networks. We are talking about health services. we are talking about street lighting, things that sound really basic or that we know about, that but that we lack now in the current context in Zimbabwe. And these are things that are key and critical to providing the safety of young women. How? I will start, for instance, with the provision of efficient road networks. Roads in communities where there are no roads, these are communities where it's difficult to access other services that are outside of that community. I'll take, for instance, communities like Hopley, communities like Epworth, where there are no road networks at all. Of course, we are seeing processes where they are trying to begin installation. But for instance, there are times when you have a young woman who is in labor and they require the services, say, of an ambulance. And ambulance services, most of the times they would refuse to get in to get into a community where the road systems are not clear, they are bumpy, there are potholes as well, for fear of damage to their vehicles. So this means that these services become difficult to access for people that reside in those particular communities. And then also the one that we witness every day is in the form of roads that are potholed, that are just difficult even for motorists to maneuver. The danger here is that we have seen that generally we begin to have an increase in accidents. We also begin to have challenges in terms of some communities where they'll say we end here, we end at the Lusaka market, we cannot go down there because the road is so bad. So you have to walk long distances, at times it's dark, and then there are robberies even from as early as 6 p.m. So this is how the road networks impact the safety of women. And when we talk about water supply, water and sanitation, we know that because the role of fetching water has traditionally been assigned to women, young women and girls. So the time that because of the lack of water, the times that they sometimes have to wake up to go and kunobata queue so that they have water early. Sometimes they wake up as early as 4 a.m. and it's still dark. Some of them are attacked, some of them robbed, some of them even raped on their way to secure water. And then sometimes they also have to leave these spaces late at night because they really need the water. Water is something that we need even just to cook. So it is a basic need in the household. So sometimes people can leave late at night, and it exposes them to the same consequences: attacks, rape, abuse, sexual harassment. When we talk about social service delivery, we are talking about something that has a direct impact on the safety of young girls. Street lighting, I think for over decades now, we have not seen working street lights in our country, of course, except for perhaps in some major um, highway roads or roads that are frequently used but by the elites. Like, for instance, you would see street lighting along Airport Road and other similar roads. But lack of light, it means that it's just dark. When it's dark, the ones who are vulnerable, they become more vulnerable. You have a young girl in a wheelchair or any other person with a disability, or with an impediment in their sight, and it's dark. People can just easily manipulate or steal or rob that kind of a person. They are vulnerable, and they will take advantage that no one can see because it is dark. So we really have to take the provision of these services is key in terms of ensuring the safety of women. So to the same perhaps to the same extent, I would also just talk about the provision of electricity. In some communities, it's more of a luxury that people have electricity, but it is a basic, because if there is no electricity, then there is no lighting, and it also means people are going to go out there to look for firewood and other things to make fire, to cook. And mostly these are also the girls that we're talking about. We have seen reports of young girls disappearing as young as 12 years, as 9 years. In the urban setup, or even also in the rural setup. And vana vanobiwa through those means. Sometimes they are raped, so they become susceptible to those forms of abuse. And then and then the lack of access to health services. So I'm just talking about, I'll use one example that I think is simple. Know the story of another lady. She was raped, she was gang raped. And so she went to a health facility because so that they could test if she had not contracted HIV, and also to just get those post-exposure uh, medication. So she got there. Initially, there were no test kits, and they didn't know how to help her. Also, they didn't have the post exposure. So these are services that, if they are not available, they have made this girl vulnerable. In the event that one of the persons that raped her was infected by HIV or any other sexually transmitted diseases, for that matter, and at the time that she will get help, it might be a bit too late, and it would have made her vulnerable to other perhaps infections or other ailments. So this is why it is important to have working health systems. It is important to have safe working spaces, roads, water, and street lighting. I'll just conclude by talking about corruption, because corruption has been the main reason why we do not have adequate social service provision in our country. And corruption has taken in terms of national resources, but has also taken in terms of personal resources. We have seen it now rampant in areas where people are looking for alternative social services. So, for instance, where young girls are going to fetch water, there will be a committee that would have been selected to manage the running of that, say, borehole. And usually these committees, their leaders and the people that run it, they're usually male. So they use the advantage that you are desperate for the water. They begin to ask for your number. And also, just to mention that this water is also being sold, in some of these water points. So for those that do not have the money, they are ending up being coerced into relationships with these people that control these water points. So corruption has led to a decline in the provision of social service delivery, but has also made our young girls and women vulnerable to sextortion, to what we have termed as sextortion or extortion. If you do not have the money to pay or to bribe for that service, then you have to give yourself. So it has made us more vulnerable to sexually transmitted diseases and the ongoing abuse, manipulation, and control, ending up in dropping out of school, ending up in unwanted pregnancies, and so forth and so on. So yeah, I would say in a nutshell, this is the connection that exists between the provision of social service delivery and the safety and security of young women and women and girls. So yeah, but if there's anything else that would need clarity, I would be happy to respond in the next session. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Margaret, for giving light to some of those issues. And definitely, if you are not involved, or if you choose to put a blind eye to it, you won't see some of these atrocities that are happening around our girls and our women. Uh, we seem to have lost Bridget there, but it's okay. She will join us as we continue in this conversation. I see Aluad Chidodo has come in guns blazing and saying, how can you talk about service delivery when a woman you are supposed to look at is abused and you just keep quiet? I'm talking about Mary Chiwenga. Do you think you are finding water in a desert? Don't be cowards, stand with her. Thank you so much, Alod. I think the issue of Mary Chiwenga doesn't need women only to raise voices. It needs everyone, because we're talking human rights issues here, not just women's rights. So as men, you also need to have a conversation with your fellow general so that you are able to, clear up some of these things. We appreciate your anger, but you must also appreciate that a lot of women's organization, a lot of women have also been speaking on this issue. Maybe the question that we need to be asking each other is, what are you doing about a situation that is happening around us? So thank you so much, Alod, for showing such passion when talking about this issue that is prevalent. But like I say, the Mary Chiwenga issue is not happening in isolation. And once we deal with the issues or the stereotypes or the legal instruments that surround issues to do with girls and women, we are definitely encompassing everybody. Of course, we continue to talk about what's happening, and we definitely do not condone such treatment of human beings, but to then try and narrow down every conversation to Mary Chiwenga is literally throwing every other woman out there who is facing different atrocities at different levels as if they are not important. So we continue to engage on some of these issues. Thank you so much, Margaret Mutsamvi. And speaking about public offices and women participating, I want to come to you, Bridget. Maybe you can, or rather, let me start with you, Shalom. Talk about the effects of violence on the participation of women in public life. How can we help women to begin to take and occupy those spaces that matter in our public sphere, to deal with some of these challenges that were raised by Margaret, and creating a safe space for girls and women?
About building safe spaces for women and girls, I think people should also realize that we go down to talking about, what happens online, what happens in the social media spaces that women and girls are going into, because I'm sure everyone, well, not everyone, but the highest population of the world right now is on social media and knows what happens on social media. And the increase of GBV really is also being contributed by the social media spaces. So first of all, I would like to address this issue to the duty bearers, that they talk or address issues to do with online bullying, online cyber stalking, online doxing, and all of that. By enforcing a law, I do acknowledge that there is a law that talks about persecuting a person who misuses internet, or rather uses the internet to infringe someone else's rights. And also to the civil societies, that they must keep on the effort of shining light into these issues, because honestly, the social media world is crazy right now, talking about women's rights. Given that statistics show that 51% of girls online have reportedly experienced some form of online GBV personally. And then of these, 85% said that they have experienced multiple forms of harassment. And then 99% of girls and women across Africa in highlighted cities are concerned about their safety online. So this is bringing up the knuckling, impersonating, spamming, and tracking, and also trolling and non-consensual pornography, cyber stalking, and all of that. So this leads to people deleting accounts, discontinuing the use of services after this kind of experiences online. So also our government should also take this responsibility to create better laws to protect women from targeted online harassment. Noting that also these online gadgets have also contributed in the households, that, if you look at the, really don't want to go into domestic violence, but it's also a contribution, because the phones, we don't want to talk about, the phones, what the phones do with couples and families, all of that, because that's a whole story for another day. So that's what I would like to address. And the effect of GBV and SGBV on women's participation in public life, like you asked. The self-esteem of a person and the dignity and worth of a person is really demorized when someone says something about you online, when someone talks or uses your profile or creates a fake profile of you and starts shaming you and saying all sorts of things. People do take this kind of things for granted, but then it really affects the psychological life of a person. And also mental illness, basically mental illness, the trauma and mental psychology that goes on when someone is stalking you, when someone keeps on creating fake accounts and trying to follow you, trying to monitor your life, trying to see what you're about, and also trying to be harmful to you. Not only trying, but also being harmful by the use of social media. And then, I would also like to talk about how these kind of things end up in killing young women and young girls, because not everyone knows how to deal with GBV and SGBV. Not everyone has the capacity to talk about these things in public spaces, even in private spaces. So people do resort, young women and young girls do resort to committing suicide, to, you know, other unsafe methods of dealing with this kind of situations. Dealing with that's like, for example, involving themselves in drugs, sex work, and all of that. This all can come up as a result of someone who's suffering from GBV and SGBV, mainly online.
Thank you so much, Shalom, for it's amazing how much we take for granted the little things that happen online. There's body shaming that takes place online. There's trolling, like Shalom has said. There's a lot of things that happen online. You know, even some hashtags that have been started denigrating certain women, and you know, all those kind of things that are harmful to the mental and psychological well-being of women. Thank you so much, Shalom, for that. I'll come to you, Bridget. You're a student in university, and I want you to share the experiences of young women when we talk of abuse, and how has violence silenced their voices, and what should young women do, you know, especially our students, in terms of bringing out the issues. Maybe you can just highlight for us some of the challenges that young women in colleges are facing in terms of, you know, gender-based violence, and how we can create safe spaces for them within those institutions. Bridget, you may want to unmute yourself and go ahead and speak.
Okay, so when looking at young women in university spaces, we actually realize that there's a lot that happens behind the doors, and it seems that for many to actually speak out about these things, people end up having various fears. But take for example, as a female at university, initially you face gender-based violence in all spheres, be it from your lecturers, from your peers, and everyone. So what happens is that take for instance body shaming, for example. It's one of those things that's very prevalent in schools, but then people take it for granted, and the society has actually come to normalize such things and ignore it when people then cry for help in terms of that. We actually also realize that as young females in university, they are also exposed to other violences, even from the authorities. So you actually realize that if it is like the person whom you're supposed to report to, the lecturers are the ones that are abusing you, at the end of the day, you actually find out that there's nobody that's around. And that's why we have seen a rise in things such as suicide in university spaces. And also, I would like to look at the fact that when it also comes to student representatives in university, you actually notice that there is less females involved. The reason being that a lot of people now will become afraid of the various forms of abuses and violences that are in those spaces. And then at the end of the day, we end up having less female representatives, then which then means that there is actually less female voice being had, and actually less implements pertaining to the safety of women in universities. And you also notice that due to the economic status in Zimbabwe, with the rise in prices and fees hikes and everything, it then at the end of the day forces the female student to be exposed to various abuses, all in the need for money, need for the, you know, the basic services that you need. So that it then means that in varsity spaces, most female students are then being violated to a greater extent, and there's need for greater action to be done.
Awesome, Bridgetti. Thank you so much. Yes, participation of young women, female students is worrisome because if we are saying that we want to achieve 50-50 gender representative in parliament, 50-50 gender representative in society generally, because 50-50 cannot be achieved in parliament if it's not there in church, if it's not there, in our local structures in society. So we need to deal with those issues. And Margaret, you raised some very interesting issues. I see we have Tino, please introduce yourself to the people and welcome to the show where we are talking building safe spaces for women and girls. You may want to unmute yourself and just introduce yourself. Okay. We don't seem to be going through to Tino, but all the same, I'm sure we'll be able to have a conversation there. Now, Margaret, this question I'm bringing it to you because I feel like we continue to complain. Service delivery issues not there. Our roads are a mess. I remember in 2017, I was pregnant for my daughter and I was moving, I was driving, and I was literally driving into potholes because the whole road was like that. And the evening after that drive, I went into labor. Um, but I want to understand that what should those who are in authority do to deal with these problems? Because really we've had them for a long time. But what can be done? Margaret.
Hey, thanks for that. It's a pertinent question. I don't know if you can hear me. Our Zesa has
Yes.
gone, so I don't know if my Wi-Fi is still there. Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes, I can hear you, Margaret. Please go ahead.
Okay, great. So, from where I come from, the organization, we try
Mm-hmm.
to mobilize women so that they are a part of the national resource governance processes, because we feel that most of these services are not being financed because I don't know, they are not a priority in terms of the allocation of the national resources. So I think we need to continue to mobilize and push that our national budgets allocate more towards social service delivery, towards the provision of education, of health, of electricity, lighting, good roads, safe working spaces, because our women are also like in the informal sector, which makes them more vulnerable. It has no straightforward governance procedures. So I think we need to mobilize. And now that we are revealing the relationship between social service delivery and our safety as women, we need to. I'm hoping that the conversation will reach out to more women who then will be motivated to mobilize others and to begin to make even our local authorities account to these things. How come we do not have functional roads? How come we do not have street lighting? Let's go out there, give them the statistics, the number of women being robbed, being raped, being murdered because there is no street lighting. These are the numbers, our councillor. So are we just going to keep on watching what is going to be done? And we begin to ask them to give us answers. We also begin to push through processes of mobilizing, lobbying our state to allocate more resources towards those things. Issues of water, I think we need also to just find ways of documenting incidences at water points, because when you go out there sometimes and you say more women are being abused at bowls, at water points, we are easily dismissed, as being malicious and as just giving falsehoods. So I think if we document more and more these things, write them down, short videos, pictures, and we begin to engage our local authorities directly, like to go to them, because we are afraid of them. Sometimes we don't know they are there to save us. Go there, engage with them, write down minutes to put it on record that we have engaged them, and do follow-ups to to push so that they begin also to see why we are pushing these issues and how it threatens our security as women and girls.
We seem to be losing Margaret there. We seem to be losing Margaret there. But yeah, I want to just go through some of the comments that we see here. I think this one I've responded to it, the one from Alued. And Karen comes in and says, it's unfortunate that even in a dialogue about building safe spaces for women, women are already being trolled. It's not safe space for any women out there. Indeed, thank you so much, Karen, for for noting that. And Aliwad, you come back. The abuse of online social media is the problem of the government. Why they don't have police department who just deal with internet trolls? Some countries have got social community who are recognized. When they raised an issue of girl child abuse on social media, I feel like our Zimbabwe government wastes time on politics more. Thank you so much, Alert. Indeed, we seem to be in perennial follow up of politics rather than on issues. If an issue is raised, I think the prerogative is upon the police that we have to investigate on such allegations and bring such issues to finality, because we can't just have comments on social media or videos. These days, with the way we love our social media, we are just posting videos, even that are, very difficult for some people to watch. We just post them out there, and then nothing is ever done, nothing is ever heard about those stories. So thank you so much, Aled. Indeed, we need to do much more than mere politicking. And I come back to you, Bridget. What do young people need to do, or what policy gaps need to be in place to protect young women, or in particular the female students? What do you think our government needs to put in place in order to protect our women and girls? Bridget, if you can unmute yourself. Bridget, are you there? If you may unmute yourself and engage. Okay.
Okay, so can you hear me? Okay, so when looking at the legal framework of Zimbabwe, the 2013 constitution, I can safely say that it has
Bridget,
in
please
writing
go ahead.
tried
I
by
can see you have
means.
unmuted yourself.
As I was saying, when looking at the Zimbabwean 2013 constitution, it has for so much provided for gender equity between males and females, especially when we look at sections such as Section 62, which focuses on the youth and provides the right to education and everything. But also then what is short is that there's lack of practice and actually lack of knowledge pertaining to the provisions that protect us as young females in the social, political, and economic spaces. And also, when it comes to female participation, I would also urge that they be from us as young females, we actually also participate more in, let's say, student representatives in our schools. Because if you notice in most universities, it is rare to actually find that the SRSC be headed by a female student, which is very bad, because I would say the more we are there in the policy making sectors, the more then we are able to influence and put in more for the women, right? And also when it comes to issues pertaining to abuse, gender-based abuse, let's say in relation to other students, I would say it is a core whereby we as the youth, we should also have dialogues together as males and females, so that we may actually come to know to respect each other, right? So I think that's all.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bridget. I couldn't hear you initially, but yeah, I could hear you clearly later. And here you talk about the need for young people, the need for even, oh, okay, Margaret, you say your electricity is gone, so you're struggling with network, but you're still here. Okay, that's fine. I hope we'll be able to hear you when you speak. Yeah, so I'm saying it's important that young women and males they interact and address some of these issues. And you raise a fundamental issue. Young females do not want or are not participating in university student representative councils. And this is a mirror of what's actually happening in society. Issues to do with violence being one of the detailing factors for women to participate in politics or political processes. So we would really want to see our nation dealing with those aspects. And Shalom, how can we leverage social media? How can we influence, the creation of safe spaces for young girls and women online?
Yeah, I'm sorry, my mic was off. So, well, first of all, I I also think that we as young women and as women in general, it is our duty to protect ourselves. It is also our duty to observe the kind of things we post, the kind of things we publish online, because later on, we have so much in our locus of control. You cannot control what the next person is going to do to you, but you can control the amount of power you're going to give them to use against you. Because if you realize, most of the things that people usually turn against or twist around is all because of one post that for example, Shalom has posted, and someone uses it back against me. So we have to be mindful that of what we are posting and the kind of information about ourselves that we're giving to the public, because at the end of the day, the public will have power over us by the information we have given them. So also on how to deploy these same spaces to address these issues that young women are facing and young women are generally facing online. I think we should make use of the trending social media apps to raise awareness on these things, because most people are online as we speak. Most people are on Facebook, are on TikTok, are on Instagram, on WhatsApp. And I think it's very, very important that we take advantage of these social media apps, just to and be creative in how we are going to give our information, how we're going to display information. Because honestly, I wouldn't want to take my phone and see a whole large message of GBV, SGBV, honestly, because nobody really has the time to read that on social media. When people go on social media, they want to refresh, they want to have fun, they want to laugh. So the best we can do is at least try to be creative. Also, I was thinking that we should approach, the prominent celebrities, the people that actually get attention on these online spaces to address these issues. I was going through TikTok the other day, and I noticed that two comedians who actually made a duet of a drama that had to do with GBV and SGBV. So to me, that was something that was very interesting, because the likes, I was proud of the likes. I looked at the likes. Did it reach the likes and the comments? So I also think that it's important that we approach the socialites to address these people, because it's easier for them to get attention. It's easier for people to pay attention, because these are the people people like to listen to. They are influential in their own way, but we can also take that as our advantage to address the things that we want to address. And then as I was talking about being creative and also adding quotes and creating little graphic designs just to get the people's attention, because at the end of the day, the Zimbabwe, Africa, the whole wide world is a global community, and we're connected through the internet. It's the internet that brings us together, so we can also take the internet to use it to our advantage. I hope I've answered the question correctly.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shalom Chido, for sharing that. I just want to say that April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and it is in this month, and it is our it is our prayer that as Zimbabwe Daily, when we bring these conversations, we are able to find lasting solutions for some of the problems that we're facing in society, especially issues to do with SGBV, issues to do with creating safe spaces for our young girls and our women. My name is Yvonne Muchaka, and I am having a conversation here with Shalom, Chido, with Margaret Mutsamvi, and with Bridget Mambo. Unfortunately, Margaret lost her electricity connection, so her network is a bit shaky. But we thank God that we are able to continue having this conversation. And as we round up, this is a clarion call to our policymakers, to our socialites, as they've been highlighted by Shalom, to our academic deans and leaders in the academic field to say, give women the opportunity to lead. Because as long as women take over the reins, okay, not wholly, but partially 50-50%, if we are able to be part of the decision making, we will never make decisions that put other women at risk. We'll be able to deal with most of the demons that we are facing in our society. Ladies, I just want to give you a minute each to give us your concluding remarks as we end this broadcast. I'll start with you, Shalom, and then go to Bridget. I see Margaret's net has dropped. So, Shalom, your 1 minute starts now. Your parting shot.
Okay. I'd just like to urge the women out there to stand up, because I'll give an example of when I was in high school and people were being deployed to being in the junior parliament, and the girls in my stream, a few girls, if not two girls out of 10 boys, volunteered to be in the junior parliament. So it takes us to stand up for ourselves, because we know what we're going through. We can relate to one another because we face the same things, similar situations on a daily basis. So I would like to urge the girls out there to take a stand in public spaces, online spaces, whatever the case, where they're at work, at churches, wherever they are of influence, to address these issues, to make sure that the next girl is safe, the next woman is safe. We're doing all this for the next generation. We want to say no to GBV in the next coming years, and to actually say no to any form of GBV, so that we have a safe space, sorry, for all the girls, our junior girls. And I'm sure we're doing this for the next generation, because we have a lot of work to do. Thank you.
Awesome, Shalom. Thank you so much. And Gracious comes through and say, yet you can't protect Mary Chiwenga. And how can you help or say anything to help women? I can even sense your anger, Gracious, as you are speaking. But like I said earlier on, we all have a responsibility to do something. And it's not about somebody else taking charge. It's about all of us taking charge, taking responsibility, and making sure that our society is safe for every girl and every woman. Over to you, Bridget. Please go ahead.
Okay, so as a closing remarks, I would like to urge the young females, especially those in tertiary universities, to be involved, to actually take space and participate. Because the moment we as young females become involved, we actually gain power to influence others. We actually gain the power that we need to actually make a change and be there for each other and protect other girls. So the only way we can create a safe space for us young women is whereby we also became involved in the policy makings of our country. Thank you.
Excellent involvement. Women, let us be involved. Let us participate. Let us take part in those issues that determine where we are going. And thank you, Alod. The issue you're talking about, the government is supposed to take it in practice, not just talking in the park. Our government is supposed to support the women. Indeed, Our government is supposed to support the women, but the best way that we can support the women is to allow them to take charge, is to allow them to give them an opportunity and say, create the environment that you'd want. What we women want is exactly what we will put on the table if we take on those spaces, right? Thank you so much, Shalom, Bridget, and in absentia, Margaret, for taking your time out to talk to us. Thank you so much, Gracious, for coming through. Aled Chidodo, thank you so much. And Karen, for tuning in and commenting on this conversation. And thanks to all of you who managed to tune in and those who will tune in later to talk. We need to talk about these issues. And as you can see, every Thursday on Behind the Microphone, we are bringing you gender issues. What is it that is affecting our women and girls, and how can we make life better? And I know that in the upcoming programs, we are also going to be including the men, because without you, without a paradigm shift in how you see women, we are never going to achieve that space that is safe for girls and our women. My name is Yvonne Muchaka, and it has been a pleasure being with you on this platform. Have yourselves a wonderful rest of day, and remember that as we raise awareness on sexual assault, the month of April, you and me has a responsibility to make things work. If you haven't registered to vote, please go and register to vote. The Zimbabwe Electoral Commission is on a blitz of voter registration from the 14th up to the 30th of April. So do take this opportunity to register to vote. If you don't have your national ID, your birth certificate, your death certificate, please also just go to your nearest Blitz center, where the Registrar General's office or whichever office is responsible for that is doing their work. I know that in Chitungwiza they are there. I know that in Hopley they are there. I know that in all the different centers across the country, the central registry is doing some work. So let us go there and get our children their birth certificates. If you don't have a national ID, get it, take advantage and go and register to vote. And if you have a relative that passed on but we're not able to get documentation, this is also the opportunity to do that. Go and register your late relatives and get a death certificate. My name is Yvonne Muchaka. It has been a pleasure being with you. Have yourselves a wonderful rest of day.